Hey, it's Mark Watson, MCC Media, live here at Tap 1 for the noon tip between Georgetown and Mount St. Mary's. Georgetown comes into the game trying to break a two-game losing streak. Last time out, a loss to Rutgers, where some things were exposed, things that you probably would think would be exposed in a 71-60 loss. And we're going to talk about some keys for Georgetown to be a more productive team throughout the season, not necessarily just here against Mount St. Mary's. And it starts with the turnover situation. 21 turnovers against Rutgers. Can't beat too many teams. Nevertheless, a team in the Power 5 conference turned the ball over 21 times, which speaks to a bigger problem. Ed Cooley has inherited a team that you don't necessarily think of as having a power conference a power conference primary ball handler. It's not necessarily a point guard. We got to kind of get out of that sort of terminology. Most teams now want to have multiple primary ball handlers on the floor at once. Two primary ball handlers, maybe a secondary ball handler on the wing, but it's very, very hard to win when you don't have someone who is that primary ball handler. That's certainly not it's not a criticism of Jaden Epps. It's not a criticism of Roman Brumbaugh. That's not who they truly are on this level. And it's why Georgetown is going to have its struggles throughout the season. And it's something that's going to keep coming up in games where they can do enough to mitigate that. They will be better. And in games where they don't, you're going to have some performances where you're going to say, oh my gosh, how far is this team away? But again, and I've said this before, this program is a multiple seasons away from getting to year one. And so Georgetown in that aspect will have to find a way to mitigate that, find a way to fix that, find a way to survive the season, knowing that's going to be an issue. The other thing I'd like to see Georgetown do a heck of a lot better is shoot the three. When you are in a situation like this, the great thing about college in particular is the 3-point line can make up for a lot of ills. It can make up for a lot of sins. And Georgetown does not have that guy who can really, really knock it down in a big spot. Now, you would think on paper that would be Jaden Epps. But again, because Epps needs to take some of the ball handling duties, you haven't seen it as much. He's 6 for 19 for three. In the first three games, that's not bad because you want to get your 3 corners in the rhythm and in the construct of your actions. But imagine if he doesn't have so much primary ball handling responsibilities. That number is probably higher than 19, and that shooting percentage is probably higher than where we at, than 31.6%. As for Brumbaugh, again, it's somewhat the same thing. I think in his case, he's shooting around 35%. He's just one of those 3-point guys that you have to get him with space in his actions to get his shot off and to get it off comfortably. It's not a guy that's necessarily going to shake you, pull up a three, and do those types of things. It's not going to be created. It's going to have to be manufactured. Those are two different 3-point threats when you need the actions to give you those opportunities. Rowan Brumbaugh needs actions to get him those opportunities at a high clip. Other thing is, and I'm having this conversation this morning, this is not just Georgetown, but who can get you a basket off script? Where can this team get off script points that's not in transition, not in secondary transition, and not in your action? A guy that with 7 seconds left on the shot clock to get you a bucket. A guy that, with 15 seconds in the shot clock to make a move, create space, score, or create for others without being action dependent. Georgetown doesn't have it. By the way, in the DMV, And give this thought. If you think about it in the DMV, the team that might have the most guys who can get you that bucket off script is probably GW because they have James Bishop and Maximus Edwards. They might be the best prepared to get you those things. But in Georgetown's case, again, playing in the league that they're playing in, and Ed Cooley having to rebuild this program from where he has to rebuild the program, it's tough if you can't get some stuff off script. That if everything has to be planned out, and that your defense doesn't score enough to get you in any sort of pressure type of defense to get those transition and secondary transition baskets, something that Georgetown desperately needs. This team to be successful, to get 5, 6, 7 Big East wins, they have to play so much out of transition and secondary transition and a whole heck of a lot less out of setting up. So that can happen a combination of ways. First of all, defensively, you have to get stopped so you're not starting every offensive possession taking the ball out the basket. It's not 1983. 1983, I can take the ball out of the basket, run my stuff, there's no shot clock, blah, 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 blah. You can't win games taking the ball out the basket all the time. But to defend the defense, you have to make shots to get your pressure up so you can have short possessions, akin to football. Your defense, either by turnovers, either by 3 and outs, your defense giving you a shortened field. For Georgetown, they need more shortened possessions that need to come from the defense. But for it to come from the defense, the offense has to score. You see, that's where the trouble is for Georgetown because they're not getting either one on either side. So that also will have to be mitigated somehow, some way throughout the season. So those are those 3 things to look for today as the Mount comes in here with a 1-1 record is can Georgetown improve on those 3 things and have something that they can start building upon going into the Big East season. And that's going to determine what that Big East season looks like. This is Mark Swanson from MTC Media.